All right, welcome. Today, we are going to seriously power up your presentation skills. So, if you're studying for the IC3 Spark exam or, just want to stop making slideshows that put people to sleep, you are in exactly the right place. Let's jump in. So, we're going to do things a little differently today. Instead of just throwing a boring list of facts at you, we're going to use stories. And why are we doing that? Well, it's simple, really. Our brains are basically wired to remember stories, especially the funny ones. This whole approach is going to help you remember this stuff long after you've passed the test. And hey, this isn't just some random idea. There's real science here. When you hear a good story, your brain lights up in a way that just reading a list of facts doesn't. It's not even close. So using this method will totally help you nail the IC3 Spark exam. And more importantly, it builds a really strong foundation for those bigger certifications you might be looking at, like CompTIA, where communicating clearly is absolutely everything. Okay, first up, let's talk about inserting content into your presentations. And to really show you what I mean, I'm going to tell you a little story I like to call the wrong picture. So you got to picture this. It's 2 in the morning. I'm running on nothing but coffee, trying to finish this huge, super serious presentation on network security. I get to the last slide, and I need to add this really complex network diagram. So, I click, I drag, I drop, done. Perfect. The next day, I'm in the big meeting with all the important people, feeling pretty good. I get to that crucial slide, I click the button to show it, and instead of my diagram, it's a giant, high-resolution picture of my cat Mittens wearing a tiny hat. The entire room goes dead silent, and then just erupts in laughter. Yeah, I learned a very, very important lesson that day. Always, always double-check your work. So what I completely messed up that night was the skill of inserting content. It sounds kind of fancy, but it's a really simple, powerful skill. It just means adding things to your slides that aren't plain text. Things like images, sounds, or videos. In my case, I inserted the wrong picture, and my very serious presentation instantly turned into a cat comedy show. And my little story just goes to show how easy it is to do, and also how easy it is to mess up. But the process itself, it's actually super simple. You just go to the Insert tab, you pick what you want to add, like a picture or a video, find the file on your computer, and pop it right onto the slide. That's it. 4 easy steps. So why does this really matter? Well, in the IT world, you are going to use this skill constantly. When you're studying for your CompTIA A+, you'll learn to make troubleshooting reports with screenshots that show exactly what the problem is. Inserting the correct image clearly and professionally is a critical skill, for sure. Okay, now let's switch gears and look at a question you might actually see on the exam. It's pretty straightforward. Which menu tab would you use to add a picture to your slide? So your options are A, File, B, Home, C, Insert, or D, Design. Just think about the action word. What are you trying to do? You want to insert something new. Take a second to think about it. And the correct answer is C, Insert. The most important thing to remember here is that the name of the tab often tells you exactly what it does. The Insert tab is your one-stop shop for adding all kinds of new content, like pictures, videos, and charts. So here are the key ideas you'll want to remember for the exam. First, Insert. It's the action, and it's the tab name. Easy. Then you have Media. That's just a general word for all the stuff you can add, like pictures and videos. And please always remember to resize or crop your images so they fit nicely on the slide. And finally, get to know your toolbar or menu. That's where all your tools live. Okay, so now we know how to put things in our slides, but what about putting the slides themselves in the right order? Let's talk about slide management. And for this one, let me tell you about a friend of mine who tried to tell a joke in a presentation and failed miserably. So my friend, he wants to start his big presentation with a funny joke to break the ice. A joke with a setup, a middle part, and then the big punchline at the end. Simple, right? Well, he had his slides in the completely wrong order. The very first slide that popped up on the giant screen was the punchline. Then came the setup. Nobody got it. Everyone was just confused. The joke made zero sense because all the pieces were out of order. And that, my friends, is a perfect example of what happens with bad slide management. Slide management is just the skill of organizing your presentation so it actually makes sense. You want it to flow logically. This means adding new slides where they're needed, deleting the ones you don't, and most importantly, arranging them all in the correct order. And trust me, this skill is fundamental. When you're studying for your Network Plus, you might have to explain the steps for setting up a small office network. Well, if you present step 5 before step 1, the instructions are completely useless and that network is never going to work. Good slide management creates a clear step-by-step path for your audience to follow along.
Okay, exam time again. Here's a really practical question. You have a presentation where the last slide is showing up first. What do you need to do?
So, your options are A. Delete the slide, B. Change the font, C. Change the order of the slides, or D. Add a new picture. Think about it. Which one of these actions actually solves the problem? The correct answer here is C. Change the order of the slides. It makes perfect sense, right? The problem isn't with what's on the slide, like the font or a picture. The problem is with the organization. The order is all mixed up. So the logical fix is to rearrange the slides into the right sequence. To wrap this up, let's lock in those keywords. Order is the big one here. Always think beginning, middle, end, just like a story. You can use predefined slide styles to add new slides that look consistent really quickly. Add and delete are your basic actions for controlling how many slides you have. And here's a great pro tip. Use the slide sorter view. It lets you see all your slides as these little pictures, which makes it super easy to just drag and drop them into the perfect order. 2 down, 1 to go. So we've got our content in the slides and the slides are in the right order. But what if nobody can actually read them? Well, that brings us to our final topic, slide design. And believe me when I tell you, I'm about to share a true horror story I call a crime against eyes. I once had to sit through a presentation that I will never, ever forget, for all the wrong reasons. The presenter used this bright, screaming yellow background with white text. White text? It was literally impossible to read. Then, on the next slide, they used a font so tiny you couldn't see it from the second row. And to top it all off, every single word would fly onto the screen with a different, dizzying animation. It was a complete visual disaster. Whatever the message was, it was totally lost because no one could actually stand to look at the screen. That presentation was basically a masterclass in terrible slide design. Good slide design is all about making your presentation look professional and, most importantly, making it easy to read. The number one goal is clarity. You're trying to help your audience understand your message, not give them a headache. This means choosing colors with good contrast, using fonts that are clear and big enough to see, and sticking with simple, clean layouts. And this skill is not just about making things look pretty. If you're creating a security report for a Security Plus project, or you're building a dashboard in Microsoft Azure, clarity is absolutely everything. If people can't easily read the data you are presenting, then all of your hard work is basically useless. Good design equals good communication, period. So let's test that idea right now. Here's your final sample question. What is the most important goal of good slide design? Take a look at your options. A, to use as many colors as possible. B, to make the information easy for the audience to read. C, to add animations to every object. Or D, to make the text as small as possible. You know, 3 of these sound a lot like that horror story I just told you. The correct answer, of course, is B, to make the information easy for the audience to read. This is the golden rule, you guys. Design is there to serve the message. If your design choices make the information harder to understand, it's bad design, no matter how cool or fancy it looks. Readability is always, always number one. And here are your final keywords. Using a pre-made design or a theme is a great way to make your presentation look professional without a ton of effort. It's a safe choice. Formatting just refers to changing the look of your text. You know, bold, color, size. Use animations and transitions very, very carefully. Less is definitely more. And always, always check for readability. Here's a great trick. Ask yourself, can someone sitting in the very back of the room read this slide? If the answer is no, you gotta make it bigger. And that is a wrap on our 3 topics. Let's just take a second to quickly summarize everything we've learned today. It really all comes down to 3 super simple ideas. First, inserting content. Put the right stuff in the right place. And please, no surprise cat pictures in your security meetings. Second, slide management. Tell your story in the right order, from beginning to end. And third, slide design. Above all else, just make sure people can actually read what you've put on the screen. So as we finish up here, I want to leave you with one final thought. After hearing all these stories today, what's the number one mistake that you are determined to never make in a presentation ever again? Really think about that, because answering that question for yourself is the absolute best way to make sure these lessons really stick. Thanks for joining us.